Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, hey, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Mike Cermak. He'll be joining us here in just a moment. He is, of course, owner-operator of TechGuy.org. If you head on over to Computer America, well, at the top there, tech support, that button sends you right on over there. That is our preferred place to, hey, kind of send newcomers. Of course, you can always send us an email, as the opener said, live at Computer America, and we'd love to help you. But, hey, we're not on staff like the nice folks over at TechGuy.org are. So, yeah, long-time partnership and a long-time friendship, and yeah, it's always great to help kind of add to that community, and of course have that community help our listeners here as well. But we'll be doing computer and technology news for the show today. We have a ton of different stories, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this because a number of these we have not even touched on the show here. Everyone, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything: show notes, past shows, future shows, the podcast, articles, reviews, all that and more, and of course contests. We're actually, we can start teasing this now, probably beginning next month, we'll have what's looking like a 1-month contest with our friends over at Catalyst Case. So we're going to have a number of different, kind of lifestyle products to do a little giveaway. So keep an eye out for that. We'll let you know here on the show as well. And check us out on social media as well. So, all that being said, thank you again for tuning into the show. Let's go ahead and bring in our guest and just get started. So, as I said before, owner-operator, techguy.org, and of course, probably our longest-running Computer America correspondent. And welcome back onto the program, Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Not half bad. And thank you once again for joining
Merlin
us.
is still on the screen. I didn't even notice. Has he always been there and I've just never noticed?
We started adding Merlin, kind of like a mascot. And it's funny, because Merlin he was actually on the show for a number of years, way back when. But yeah, hey, we got our home office, our home studio all up and running. So why not enjoy,
You just need a 24/7 like stream of Merlin napping.
Merlin cam, that'd be very good. Sometimes Zach makes it on there too, but yeah, I had an extra webcam lying around, and Mike, I just can't leave technology, just sitting there doing nothing, collecting dust. So why not?
I feel you.
Why not indeed? So with that being said, before we get started, why don't I did my best to introduce techguy.org. Why don't you go ahead and introduce techguy.org, and then we'll do the show.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. So techguy.org is my website I created way back when I was a youngster in 1996, which was an awful long time ago, and was when the internet was really just starting to get, started. We were one of the first forums out there. We were one of the first tech support forums out there. We now have over 800,000 registered users there, and it's just a friendly place to be able to go and get tech support. You go there, sign up. You can sign in with your Google, sign in with your Facebook, or create an account, and there's no cost for it. You post your questions, you help other people with their questions, and it's just a nice community of people trying to help one another out with technical issues and figure out this little IT world that we live in.
Well, and actually, I have a story here that I wanted to bring up because it's I don't know how much experience you have, Mike, with the nice folks over at Best Buy and of course Geek Squad as well. But there's a new program that they're launching that everything's a subscription, and they're trying to, turn that into a subscription. So I think I know, kind of Computer America's response to that, which would be obviously we enjoy when people learn about the stuff that they spend so much money on, and they, kind of get their hands dirty and they, fix things that are probably actually pretty easy fixes when you finally figure out what it is. But yeah, we have that story and more. But yep, techout.org. Again, we'll have a link there, or of course visit there. Now, with that being said, Mike, you sent over a number of stories. I've collected a number of stories. I haven't exactly shared mine with you, so you're at a disadvantage here. But I thought
right.
it's going to be fine.
You'll get a live, honest response from me is what you're going to get.
It's perfect. But I thought because you are the guest, we'd lead off with something that you thought was, of all the stories that you sent over, which one do you think is kind of lead worthy?
Oh boy, which one is lead worthy? Let me think about this. So a couple of them caught me as news, but not really news. I don't know. Like, for example, the SpaceX announcement. Of course, I obviously I should lead on the Elon Musk story, right?
Of course,
that's my requirement. Every time I'm on, I have to mention Elon Musk, or I get kicked out of the show.
Of course.
But, so the most it's in my contract. So the news story here is that they don't plan to add price tiers to the SpaceX Starlink internet. And for those who aren't familiar, somehow, if you're living under a rock, maybe you already know about Starlink internet, because that's going to be the only way you're going to be able to get decent internet. But that's what it is. It's satellite-based internet, primarily right now focused on people who live in the boonies that don't have access to other great internet. Where I live here in Pennsylvania, I'm kind of in the boonies a little bit. I'm lucky enough to barely get cable internet, but there's no other options. There's no DSL here. There's no fiber here. There's barely cable here.
Right.
But I have friends who live, down the street who don't even have that option. So this is great for people who are in more rural areas that you can get fast, decent internet. Like some people are testing around 300 megabits per second, which is not available around here any other way. And it's very exciting to me because all of a sudden everywhere is going to have a competitor. We have a monopoly right here. If you want internet, you get Comcast, period, end of story. And it'll be really nice to have options everywhere. All ISPs will suddenly have an option. But
emphasis on everywhere, right?
Yes, that's and anywhere you can see the sky, I guess. And I guess, I guess you could make an argument for, well, what if you live in an apartment building and can't strap a satellite, to your building or something? Maybe not everywhere, but it's going to be very exciting. And right now the cost is $100 per month after you pay. I think it's $500 for the equipment, so it's not cheap. But I would argue that that's not unreasonable, considering you don't have a lot of other options anyway, and in many cases high-speed internet from a cable company is going to cost you $100 a month anyway. So I don't think it's unreasonable, and you can use this anywhere. But there was discussion about if, of course you would expect them to have different pricing tiers, just like most providers do. Do you want the 50 megabit per second connection, or the 100 megabit per second connection, or the 300 megabit per second connection? And they're talking about even be able to do up to gigabit someday. And,
it's a very Tesla way to approach this, because obviously when Tesla first started, they only had the Roadster, or I think it was the Roadster, where
that's right.
Of course they only had their $100,000 Tesla model that you could buy, and I think that kind of paying for a premium product allowed them to kind of, start up their factories and start up the production of the more moderately priced. I mean, it took 8-9 years before they even started to produce the Model 3.
And when you're starting with something all new like this, having a single SKU is not necessarily a bad idea. Keeping it simple is,
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, and for sure, and obviously, if you are going to cough up the $500 up front, you're probably going to be comfortable with paying the $100. Like you said, though, $100 a month is actually pretty standard for high-speed internet.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I've heard a lot of criticism over the $100 a month price point, but I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
No,
And they have people begging for the service. I mean, I'm signed up on the waiting list for it, as I know several other people are. It's not as though, I mean, they could probably charge twice that and still not, have more people asking for it than they can handle right now.
So, and the only reason that I would say that people are confused is because, that they gripe a little bit. The article that you linked here from CNET obviously has the test that they did over at CNET. I mean, it's going to vary by location, and of course, it's going to get better as they launch more satellites and things like that. But they were able to get 78 megabits per second, which is, by the way, amazing, because every time I hear satellite, Mike, it's like every time I hear about satellite, it's like, yeah, I was able to get, 1 to 3 megabits per second most of the time, and, no upload speed whatsoever. Like, yeah, it's good.
Is the latency. With traditional satellite internet, the satellites are in higher orbit than what the SpaceX satellites are. They're in low Earth orbit, right, which is how they're able to have low latency. People talk about bandwidth and how fast your internet is, and say you have 100 megabit internet. That's great, but if you have a 2,000 millisecond lag, you can't use it for video conferencing like we're doing now, or a voice over IP, or playing games. You can download files, and how quickly those files come to you is important. How big the pipe is, but how long it takes for that water to get from the starting point to the sink is the latency, and that's an important factor as well.
I wanted to, and I went out and quickly Googled this little chart right here. They mentioned it's top 10 internet providers for gaming, but ignore that. This at least conveniently shows all the different, Google Fiber, Cox, Suddenlink, Xfinity, all of them with their average millisecond return rate. And let's see, so these are review.org, 2019, latency. Essentially, yeah, this was a survey back in 2019, and Mike, I didn't know how to put 80 millisecond into perspective, and this seems like a pretty good, 36 millisecond.
Right.
That's like on average half of what a traditional hard line to your house would get you. Like, that's actually super good.
Yeah, that's great. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm doing a quick test right now on my cable internet, and I'm getting 25 to 31 milliseconds.
Right.
And so it's going through, coax. It not being beamed into space and back.
Right. So I'm hoping that, they're going to allow a lot of people, because one thing that's really going to cripple this if it happens, Mike, because all these cable companies, they have a certain amount of customers. Like you just said, in your neighborhood, you could be a potential customer, but your
right,
neighbor one street down could not be. Like, they're very aware of how many customers they could get. Starlink, I'm guessing their potential customers, assuming once they get their entire satellite array up, their potential customers are 8 billion people now. I'm obviously no network on Earth, no singular network, especially a satellite network, is going to be able to handle that many. But right now they're boasting 10,000 users across US and Canada. I'm wondering how robust, even when they get there, what are they hoping for? Like 10,000 satellites, 13,000 satellites?
1,200, right?
Somewhere.
Oh, wait. No, it's 1,200 now. I'm sorry, my mistake. They have 1,200 now.
Right now, when it's fully fleshed out, I'm wondering how many people can they really serve realistically?
Right.
That's what I'm curious about.
Well, and there's other companies that are talking about doing the same thing as well, right? We've got Blue Origin that is talking about doing internet, satellite internet as well. And as much as people criticize them for copying or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Again, I am in favor of there not being monopolies. I don't want there to be one satellite internet provider. Let's have.
I want my
others.
Choice of which billionaire is giving me internet.
Be able to see the sun. I just need fast internet. I need YouTube's quickly.
Are you saying that this is the first step to a Dyson sphere? Like, this is...
Yes.
This is the first steps, but the access to information anywhere is such a fundamental shift that I think that people kind of underplay it at the same time. Imagine being somewhere completely remote and still having access to information and being able to send information as well, which is super important, like your location and information, teaching, all that kind of thing. That's something that is super underrated. And Starlink, I'm glad that they're kind of focusing on a U.S. market because, hey, we're in the U.S. Yay, we have a chance. But at the same time, I feel like where a service like this is really going to shine is unfortunately places where, 500 might be a bit much of an ask, but eventually they're going to be able to provide internet to places that don't have any option.
And if they charge me $500 for the hardware and $100 a month now and build up that network and keep launching these satellites and use, people like you and I as the initial set, just like the Roadster.
Yeah.
The first car you build is the $150,000 car that you can only sell a couple of, but at least that gets you started. And then eventually you can sell the $30,000 Model 3. It's well,
Well, and then of course have all of them recalled within a couple of years. But other than that,
minor detail.
Yeah, they no, it like I said, it's a very Tesla way to approach this. But I'm hoping that they get more and more permission to launch more and more satellites because that's going to be kind of the determining factor. I think there's definitely a pent up need there, or at least a pent up demand for more competition. You said it very well between Starlink and Blue Origin. I think even beyond that, just people I don't know about you. Again, I refuse to name my internet provider on the air because they're so crap. But I would love any kind of competition because they know right now from my neighborhood, I make that call every 6 months. I'm like, hey, I love your service, but I'm really thinking about switching and, to get that promotional rate. And even then they're like the last 2 or 3 times they started laughing at me because they know no one else is in my neighborhood.
Yep, that's the same experience I have. Yep.
It's
they look. Oh, sure. Let me look you. Oh no.
Yeah.
Sorry. Actually, we need to turn your prices up a little bit. We've been meaning to send you a letter.
Yeah, exactly. Your promotional rate has ended, and you're not eligible for anything new. So
what are you gonna do? Cancel?
I will say though, some of the infrastructure spending, which we're not going to get into some of the proposed plans, but as I heard, some of the infrastructure spending that this current administration is looking into is actually and the FCC as well, is very supportive of municipal owned and operated internet networks. So like your town or your city can pass laws now to start building up an internet network instead of waiting for, Verizon to come in and build it out for you. So that's an exciting move in a positive direction.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I haven't decided how I feel about that yet. I think that in general would be better for the people. Again, more options, as long as it's done in such a way that it doesn't block private organizations from coming in and doing it. Now, how difficult it would be for a private organization to compete with the publicly funded one, I don't know. But internet, like you were saying earlier, is such a necessity, such a public utility, like having electricity, like having, it's almost a running water level of requirement. And if you want to have companies still around to compete with that, and maybe there's a baseline internet available to everyone at a very reasonable or almost free price, and then if you want the super fast gaming one, you pay a monthly fee to some private company. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Yeah,
I can see arguments, and I've heard arguments both ways about it, and I like the free market.
Yeah,
but
I'm more of a fan of the dig once, kind of way of it, where if your city or town is running new sewer lines, is rebuilding their roads or doing something else, lay down the fiber, get the network up and running, and then you can have other companies come in and start managing it and doing updates and all that kind of thing. But just have the cities able to build up their own networks, and it saves everyone money in the long run. And then you can let the market decide after that. But anything to get the internet speeds. Although I will say, Mike, I don't know if you've noticed this, America as a whole, I don't know if you keep track of America as a whole, our internet speeds have actually increased substantially since the whole pandemic thing, and even like the past couple of years. Like the average internet speed in the US, I can Google this right now, currently at 50, but I mean, just like 2 years ago, it was like, 15. Like internet speeds are actually increasing, so that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I did not know that.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not shocked to hear it, but yeah. And how does that compare with other countries?
Oh, awful, but still, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, and although I will say that I think that every country is awful compared to South Korea when it comes to like internet connectivity, but hey, at least we're in the 50s now instead of back there in the 15s or 20s, while everyone else is at like 80 to 100. So it's a start. It is a start. Okay, so with that being said, SpaceX, good luck with that, and I definitely like how they brought in a separate president for SpaceX. It's not just Elon Musk once again making these huge promises. It seems like the new president, Gwynne Shotwell.
Right.
Gwynne. Okay. Shotwell. She comes in and she's very matter of fact and business-like, which I think is something that SpaceX needed instead of just being like, oh, that's that billionaire's pipe dream. No, it's actually being run like a business. So, a little aside and a little kudos for her. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to do this other one because this one hits close to home. How close to home? And very because I actually did this since I think I last talked to you, Mike. I switched over from Chrome to, can you guess?
Edge.
Yes, Edge indeed. And
so so that's your primary browser these days?
Yep, that's what people are looking at here when I kind of go here and all this kind of thing. Yep.
So why did you make that your primary browser? What motivated you to make that switch?
10 years ago, what motivated me to move from Firefox to Chrome was Firefox messed up. There were some serious security updates. It took them like 3 or 4 months to actually fix it. And at a certain point, like I gave them like a month or two and I was like, Firefox, you messed up. So I'm looking for something different. And I think for me, at least, that's what prompted my move. And once again, that's what prompted my move like a month ago because Chrome kept messing up. If there was one rumor or at least one thing repeated over and over again about a problem with Chrome, Mike, I'm just going to let you, take one guess, one stab at what Chrome's glaring flaw is. What do you think it is?
Privacy?
Close. Memory usage.
Oh, yeah, there's that. And you find Edge to be better with it?
Absolutely.
Oh,
it is
because it's obviously, as you know, it's Chromium still in the back end. It's the same engine either way. I wouldn't expect there to be a dramatic difference between the memory usage between them.
There is, and I could. I actually don't want to show my task manager on the air, but I will say that it, over the course of the show and over the course of just, kind of doing my thing, it easily has 50% or, 50 to 70% less of a footprint when it comes to, memory usage than Chrome does. And especially, actually, now that I think about it, there was a very specific thing that happened that I guess there was a Band-Aid, Mike, that Chrome ripped off. And it might have been for good reason. Have you heard of the Great Suspender, which is an add-on?
Oh, yes, I sure have. Yes, the add-on.
Yeah, I
used it for a time.
Yeah, they disabled it about 2 months ago.
Yeah, they did for good reason.
Yeah, they said that it was malware or like sending out data, exfiltrating data or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and
there was a group of people who worked on it. It was an open source project, and the guy who led it and started it sold it to this for-profit company. And the people I read through the threads of people of the other people who worked on the project talking about it, which is fine, whatever, you're allowed to do that in that position. But
right.
Then they never really heard from anything from this new owner, and they weren't doing anything. And then all of a sudden, this new version came out, which the code was not out for, and people were looking at the data that it was sending out, and it was sending out way more data than it was before. And all of a sudden it came out that this thing is spying on people. They're collecting data that way, and which I'm sure is why they bought this add-on that was installed on who knows how many tens of thousands or millions. I mean, it was a very popular extension.
It was so popular though, and that's what kind of irks me about Chrome, and that's why Chrome kind of lost me as as a user, is that it solved a problem that Chrome had, which is it took up too much memory, especially if you had multiple tabs, multiple windows. Because I do this thing where I'm really lazy, and like I'll do the show, and I put all the websites up there, and then when I'm when I'm done, I just kind of minimize the window, and I'm like, I'll get to the show notes later, and and I have it running in the background. The Great Suspender suspended all those different tabs, all those different websites, for tracking and cookies and blah blah blah. Anyways, as soon as the Great Suspender was off, my system resources were just like, and I have a pretty decent system, were gobbled by Chrome. Like it was easily 40% of my memory was going straight to Chrome, and I was like, that's unsustainable. So yep, there we go. System resources, memory, memory usage, and I switched over to Microsoft Edge. It took 2 seconds. The process, Mike, and I'm sure that this is the same for every modern browser, but to switch from one to the other is so painless. Like I'm sure if I wanted to switch to Mozilla right now, it'd be super, super simple. Like it took two clicks and my system performance got better. There's really no difference. The only difference is whenever I use a Google service like Drive or Gmail or something like that, Google pops up a thing. It's like, for best experience, check out Chrome. But other than that, it's a much smoother, better, and faster experience. So that was my little story.
Yeah, well, and that's very interesting to hear. I have a computer. I just got a new computer at work and started just using Edge on it, which I think, by the way, is the basis of this whole story. And
you did it.
Well, no, not so much that, but confusingly is that I'm using Google Chrome still here on my home computer. So I haven't completely converted, but, and the other nice thing with Edge is that you can use all of the extensions from Chrome on Edge. So
completely
it's nice.
Compatible.
But
completely.
So the story we're talking about here that brought this topic up is that the new Microsoft Edge grew 1,300% this year, now overtaking Firefox. Which is quite a huge growth, 1,300% in the last 12 months. But on the other hand, it's like, that's all of the people who previous used Internet Explorer or the old Edge are, and in my case, like I got a new computer at work, it already had Edge on it. So I just started using it just like the lemmings did with Internet Explorer back in the day. So I don't know how much I don't know how many of those people are actively going out there and deciding to switch to it versus, well, I got my new computer this year and this is the browser it has.
So there's a couple, and they kind of break down this chart right here. And to your point, about a year ago, you had about 4.56 or about 4.5% of people using the old Edge, and compare that to today, where you have about 8% using the new Edge. So yes, they converted most of their old legacy Edge users to the new Edge. So, they converted that. They also increased by another 50%, so they got another 4% on top of that. And you can see here Mozilla, and I don't know if you've been keeping up with Mozilla, but, they've been going through this thing where they were owned by a company that was for profit and they were, going to develop it. And then they broke off and they were doing a different project. Mozilla's, I feel like people have a lot of emotional attachment to Mozilla because at one point they were the little guy. They were the guy fighting Chrome and Google and all that kind of thing. Their messaging has been really messy, I would say, over the past year. So Mozilla has lost about 1% of their user base, whereas Edge has, of course, doubled their user base. Interesting, or equally as interesting, you have Safari gaining but also losing a little bit, here and there. But of course, Chrome, they're just as popular as they ever were. So it seems like people are moving from Mozilla to other things, and that's where this shift in this market share is going, is because, hey, Mozilla's just not messaging clearly enough, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a shame to see that again with my feeling on monopolies. Um, I worry a little bit if all browsers are Chromium. Is that a bad thing? Is certainly could be a bad thing in terms of security. If a vulnerability is discovered, it will affect potentially everyone.
So, but what do you think about if everything were open source? Because that's really what Chromium is. Chromium is the open source that Google contributes the most to, and of course other people do as well. I mean, it's all open source. Like that has to be a little bit of a mitigating factor.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's good that it's open source, but I still like to have options. I'm a little the other factor is as a web developer, it sure is nice not having to test on 10 different browsers. So,
Yeah.
because it even now when you're creating a website, you still have to test it like on the old Internet Explorer just for those, people who are still
Does
using that for some
TechGuide.org
reason.
work on
And like,
IE6?
oh my gosh, no, it doesn't. We don't support IE6 anymore. No.
No, it
And neither
doesn't
should
on
anyone
purpose.
else.
Right.
But and but that's just it. Is it going to work on Opera? Is it going to work on what versions of Firefox? On what versions of Safari? So having fewer ones to worry about would be a good thing. But I even with it being open source, I wouldn't want. Uh-oh. Give me just a moment
Right.
here.
You're absolutely no. You're actually good. Yeah, no. So obviously, Microsoft Edge growing 1,300%. That's a lot like people who look at the stock market and go all the way back to the absolute lowest points. Back when the pandemic first started, and they say, oh, this stock increased by this much or that stock increased by that much. It's one of those things where they kind of cherry pick where they pick the browser at its lowest point and compare it to its now current highest point. I'm sure that if the data lined up a little bit better with 10 months, I'm sure that the headline would have switched over to 10 months instead of 12 months. There's really no kind of point there. So Edge, personally, it's a great browser. It has access to all the add-ons that Chrome does, and it has a much lighter footprint. And again, the transition is super seamless. If anyone out there has not been able to, kind of have that experience and try Edge, I personally would recommend it. It's Mike. Again, to me, it's like it's equally as good. And it's not as resource intensive. So to me, it's not even like, it blows Chrome out of the water. No, it's about the same as Chrome, but at least it doesn't take up all my RAM,
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that difference. I'm going to have to pay attention to that and look at it. And the other thing worth mentioning, if you didn't already, is that the current version of Edge, which they refer to in this article as new Microsoft Edge, is very different than the Microsoft Edge that was out a year or two ago. The old one wasn't based on Chromium, and it's such a different product. I wish they had named it something different or called it Edge 2 or something to differentiate, because now we have people who have a problem in Edge, or especially when we're doing web development stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's not working right in Edge. It's like, well, which Edge? Because they are completely two separate. I mean, it's from the ground up two different programs. It's so ridiculous that they just called it Edge as well.
Right.
And so my point being, if you tried it 2 years ago, try it again now, because it's completely a different product.
Yes, and of course, for a desktop computer, it doesn't really matter all that much. I just do it for convenience sake, but for, let's say, a laptop user, that's battery. That's battery power. That's time spent not plugged into the wall. So that actually makes a little bit of a difference. I pulled up this one from Tom's Guide real quick just to show a quick difference that they had. Personally, because I use so many tabs, so many windows, so many instances. I mean, like, I'm showing kind of the same browser like 3 times on all my screens I have here. So like mine is a little bit more exaggerated than what they're showing here, but 60 tabs, which is not uncommon for me. Chrome has about just under 4 gigs of memory, and then of course Microsoft Edge, so 3.7 versus 2.9 gigabytes of memory used. When you start getting up there, it starts making a very noticeable difference. And yeah, it's certainly a thing. And then, of course, Mike, it's without the great suspender, the longer you have it open, the more it's going to use. Like there's really no stopping it once it gets going. So there you go. Thank you for finding the article and for confirming my biases. That's my favorite thing that you do. Confirming.
I'll try to avoid that. I'll try to find some way to challenge you here.
Well, there you go. But no, that's certainly good. And I'm not paid by Microsoft to do that. Although I will have my COVID vaccine soon, so maybe Microsoft will be controlling what I say more often here soon. So,
I just got mine.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is why I chose this article.
There you go. You were compelled.
Control worked.
Do you suddenly find Bill Gates more attractive?
I never found him unattractive as far as I can remember now.
Very good. It's that you know what I'm talking about? The one picture where he has like the high waters and he's like leaning against the computer and he's like advertising Windows 3.1 or whatever it is. What a heartthrob! I'm sure that poster.
I was in the same room with Bill Gates once in my life, and he was just sitting right over there. Yeah. And I regret not going over and just saying hello or something, but it's one of those things where it's like he was just sitting there minding his own business, reading some papers. We were waiting for an event to start, but I was like, I'm nobody. You know, he has people do this to him all day. I like let the poor guy be. And I kind of regret not harassing him.
Like it's going to be one of those things where, like, to Bill Gates, you know, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference, but to you, like, yeah, you know, you're going to regret it for a while. So I hope the next time you meet a celebrity, you jump at the chance and you kind of say, hey, enjoy what you do. And by the way, this is the photo I was talking about where he's, yeah. What a heartthrob. Again, I can totally see that on a late 80s, early 90s teenage girl's wall. What's that?
Is that your desktop background? Is that your wallpaper?
It could be, and it might be going forward. Who knows? Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic that is not Bill Gates, luckily. How about... Okay, so I wanted your reaction. We already talked about it on the show. We talked about the rumors, and then we talked about when it happened on Monday. But LG is quitting the smartphone business, and again, we're just looking for, regular listeners know what happened. But the short of it is that LG essentially said it's a very competitive market, and we've never been very good at it. So see you later.
Peace out.
Exactly. So what is your reaction?
My reaction is, were they still making phones? Were they?
I think like their latest flagship, and their flagships never had like a market share over like 5%. Compared to Samsung and even Google, Apple for sure. Like they were always fourth or fifth place. But yeah, they had a number of fairly successful phones, but never very successful phones.
How about that Wing model?
The one that they're showing
LG
here.
Wing? Yeah, that one right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one you carry?
No. And LG tried to stand out from the crowd by being innovative. They were some of the first ones to have curved phones. They were some of the first ones to have, this weird doohickey. They had a lot of innovation going for them, but
and they had another one that was supposed to be coming out, right? Another like foldable that they kept teasing, and I guess that's not going anywhere.
Even as early as
a rollable. That's what it was.
Rollable phone where it would kind of expand a little bit. Yeah. It would add like an inch or two.
And that's the thing with monopolies. That's the topic of the day today. And I hate to see this happen. I hate to see LG leave because they were innovative. They were coming up with these ideas. No one was buying them, but it was, and I'm sure they were not making much money on it. It cost so much to innovate this stuff that you need a certain threshold of sales to make this work, because that's how markets work, Mike. But it's a shame to see this, because I don't want to be down to just Google and Apple and who's the one I can't think of?
Samsung.
Yeah, of course. Samsung's the other big one. I was not coming to me.
And
my
of course,
Samsung watch sitting here next to me.
You're all. I'm sorry. I will say there is competition out there, just not in the U.S. market. Huawei is actually like the biggest smartphone manufacturer.
Do you think that'll change? Do you think we'll get Huawei back?
Okay, so they were really close to breaking into the U.S. market, and I remember this very clearly because it was 2 years ago, and they were about to announce at the 2019 CES, they made a huge deal with Verizon to bring Huawei phones to the U.S. market because I don't know if you know this, but like last time I heard the statistic, 90% of all cell phones are purchased through a carrier, through a payment plan, 2-year payment plan, 3-year payment plan. Like no one goes to the manufacturers and buys the phone and then takes the phone into the carrier and say, activate this phone. Everyone buys it through the carrier. So if you don't have that deal, first of all, your entire market is 10% of the US phone market. Potentially the people who buy their phones from the manufacturer and then go to their carrier. And then even after that, no one had a strict deal with Huawei. So, it's until they make that deal, it's not going to happen in the US market. And until the FBI lets up, which I've actually heard some pretty credible things that they actually do launder a lot of their data through Chinese servers on purpose. It's kind of like the TikTok thing, they're allowed to operate, but under close scrutiny and for how long. No, I don't think Huawei's going to make a break into the U.S. market, but also they don't need to. They are currently the number one smartphone manufacturer in the world without the U.S. market. So
yeah, that's true. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's a bigger point.
Yep. So LG was competitive in no markets, and
now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off topic.
There you go.
Does Huawei still run Android, or do they have their own OS?
Oh, that's hilarious that you mentioned that. Story, I want to say 2-3 months ago, they had their own Huawei OS, and they were like, it's completely new, innovative, from the ground up. It's completely our own. It's completely proprietary. We don't, because the U.S. government.
This is quite a build-up. I'm thinking that this is not going well. All right,
well, here's the thing: the U.S. government under the Trump administration banned the amount of software that U.S. software companies could provide to Chinese organizations. Because obviously for IP theft and anti-competitiveness and things like that. Essentially,
I remembered there was something about it. Yeah, that Google would no longer be able to provide it to them since.
Yeah. Essentially, any software made here in the U.S., the Chinese could not use. So Huawei said, to protect ourselves from this threat of kind of America and the American dominance of the operating system, think, Microsoft, think Android, Google, all that kind of thing. Anyways, they said, we're going to build our own completely from the ground up, and they unveiled the Huawei OS. And they're like, it's completely our own. We did this. We are amazing. If you go into it, Mike, it was so funny. It took about half a second for people to say, all the integers are exactly the same. All of the packets are exactly the same. All of the modules are named exactly the same as any other Android. It is essentially
what a coincidence.
It is a complete rip of an Android fork. And they just renamed everything Huawei OS that they could. It's almost like they just, Control C, Control V replaced Android with Huawei OS. And otherwise, it is exactly the same.
Interesting. So now the next question is, does Google care?
They have to. They have to. They have to stop providing support. I guess there's some kind of developer API thing, and they have to reject any requests from Chinese, developers. Google has to, and I don't know if it's still a thing under Biden, but yeah, they have to. If I had to guess, Mike, this is something that is probably going to happen through negotiations and trade talks with China, but it's probably one of those cards that they're going to say, okay, you can start using, Android again if you do XYZ. So, Huawei OS is, and by the way, it's called Harmony, I think, Harmony.
Yeah, I'm seeing it here. I had not looked this up before, but I'm reading about it now. Harmony OS.
Harmony OS.
And you're exactly right. Huawei claimed that Harmony OS was a microkernel-based distributed OS that's completely different from Android and iOS. However, it was later revealed that it was based on Android 9 and supported ADB, the Android debug bridge.
Yeah. Yep. And of course, September 2020, and I'm sure you're reading from the Wikipedia as well.
Yes, sir.
Harmony OS 2.0 was based on Android 10, so yeah, big shock there. They mentioned that multiple Android system components references were found in Harmony OS 2.0. It's one of those things that developing an OS from scratch, I can't even imagine. Like the few times I've heard like Linux communities and open source communities try to do this, it was such a daunting task, because think about, Mike, like people don't really care what they're running as long as, they get some kind of form of Microsoft Word, if they get some kind of email system, if they get some kind of browser. They really don't care what kind of operating system it is. But if you redesign an operating system from scratch, you have to rewrite every single piece of software that they own. The last time I heard about this was a Linux project that they literally rewrote themselves, and they were like, we're amazing. We rewrote our own operating system. We have 60 different programs that you can run. And if you told someone who runs Windows that you have 60 different programs, including video games, web browsers, email services, like if they're like only 60, what the heck? That's not even a computer. It's so impossible. I don't blame them, but at the same time, super skeezy to just kind of steal it and say it is theirs.
It's really, yeah. And to claim that it was completely new is just shocking when you didn't go to the effort to actually rewrite it. I mean, it would be one thing to base it on that,
right.
And like at the core, like I could totally see them coming out and having the basic of the operating system, the low level stuff just be copied, but then rewrite everything that's visible to the user. And that doesn't sound like that's what happened.
No, it's.
I mean,
again,
even that would be wrong. Don't misunderstand me. Stealing is still bad.
it is such an impossible task that I never thought that they could do it, and I was immediately right. Yes, but I never had any doubt that it would be anything other than a clone of Android. And yes, it was exactly that. So Harmony OS, complete rip. And again, I'm thinking in trade negotiations, as soon as Huawei gets the go ahead to use Android again, they're going to jump right back to it. In fact, I doubt there's going to be any transition pains coming from Harmony, because it is Android. So there you go. Okay, man, Mike, time's flying. We have we have not gotten through a lot of these. So LG quitting. Real quick, my sentiments on that were, again, seeing all of the reaction online of people who were like, I love my so-and-so LG phone, my LG phone so was great. There was so much love for individual models of phones, but someone said it best when they said, I liked individual phones, but it never translated into a lifelong kind of like relationship. Like people who have Apple love Apple phones and they're going to have Apple. People who love Samsung are going to have Samsung phones. That's it. LG never got that brand loyalty that other other manufacturers got. So yeah, I'm glad that they're stepping out.
I know some hardcore Samsung people. Yeah.
Yeah. And same for Google as well with, their Google phones. It never transitioned to loyalty. And you know what? They said they're going to make phones for other people. So, hey, maybe they'll be able to turn a profit and they can compete in other parts of their ecosystem, because, hey, they make great TVs, they make great monitors, they make great appliances. They have a lot of places they do compete, and they should focus on that.
And probably a lot more profitable than cell phones.
For sure, because even that is not very profitable. Let's talk about something okay, I just want your reaction on this. Not going to get too far into it. Longest video of it. If you're watching the video portion, you can see it here. The French army is testing, well, the one, the only Spot. You may recognize him from Boston Dynamics. And yeah, using robotics in military applications is nothing new. Bomb disarming robots, scouting robots, sentry robots. Robots are, they've been augmenting soldiers for quite a while. I guess where this gets a little tricky, and again, what I want you to think about, Mike, is a private company selling a robot to armed forces, and not just the U.S. military, but now the French military, and I guess the further automation of the armed forces across the world. Is this the beginning of the end?
Is this like my brain RoboCop? Is this the
Well, RoboCop was turning a human into a robot. This is
You're right.
I'm sure Ray Bradbury had something about
No,
this.
it's not RoboCop I was thinking of. It's Terminator. How about Terminator? This is more Terminator style, right?
Yeah, well, although actually RoboCop would work as well with that giant two-legged walking robot that couldn't do stairs. I guess that would also work as well.
I forgot about him.
But yeah, so Spot being sold in military applications, I'm honestly not surprised. I mean, this thing had a price tag. It was like about the cost of like a minivan. Wasn't this thing like $30,000 or $60,000 or something like that?
Oh, I didn't think he was quite that expensive.
How much was Spot? Let's see. Spot cost.
I think it depended on what attachments you got for him, but I didn't think he was that expensive.
Spot costs.
How much did the Computer America Spot cost? That is Merlin's friend.
We're still running the legacy dog models. We haven't upgraded to Spot quite yet. I want to say.
I thought when I had here, I stand corrected. The Explorer version is $74,000.
That's what it is. That's what it is, and so that's no machine guns included. That's strictly the camera and the walking function of these things. The military equipment sold separately. So $74,500 gets you a robot, and I got to be honest, at that price,
and a pretty sweet robot at that.
Oh no, very, very sophisticated. The best in its class for, kind of an all-terrain webcam on feet. But still, at that price, Mike, there's not going to be many companies that can afford this other than like the armed forces and some bigger places to do, security work and stuff like that. I mean, it makes sense. This is kind of the application. They never strictly said this is great for military, but man, is Spot great for military.
Yeah, it does make sense. You're right.
So, yeah, the French military...
So how do I feel about that? I don't know. I guess, is it any different than, Dell selling computers to the French military, or Microsoft Windows running on their computers, or selling Boeing plane? I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works. If it's a country that we are allies with, yeah,
right.
I guess it's fine. It's now, I guess the one thing that's going to be interesting is as it becomes more and more, the military becomes more and more composed of robots. Mm-hmm. And if all of those robots come from one company and there's some person who can remotely push the button to take over, that seems like a sci-fi movie in the making. So
I don't know how much you follow, Japanese cartoons and anime, but back in the 90s, there was, of course, Gundam. And the whole point, the whole premise of Gundam with Gundam suits, I'm sure, maybe you've heard of those with the fighting robots. The whole point of that was every country had their own force of fighting robot suits. And whichever country had the best, most advanced Gundams or robots, kind of called the shots and said what was going to happen. So, Hey, maybe we're heading into a Japanese future. Who knows? But there you go, Boston Dynamics. And by the way, there's a lot of legislation, just like in the U.S., about the use of facial recognition for, the police and agencies and places like that. There's a lot of legislation going into place to prevent law enforcement and military from automating, handing off jobs to robots, like interacting with the public. And hopefully the military never actually says, I take it back. We already have drones that drop bombs, don't we?
Right. Yes.
Wow. What a slippery slope. Spot. No evil, please. No evil. Okay.
Right. Well, and if it's going to be, I don't know what more to say about that. If it's going to save the lives of service members by sending a robot out in place of a human into a minefield or into a, or into a potentially sniper's location, or whatever, or a IED or whatever, send a robot instead of a human all day long. I mean, that's
absolutely.
Just,
although there was a very visceral reaction on the internet when Boston Dynamics released those videos of Spot doing Spot things, and one of them was like Spot slips on a banana peel, And the internet went crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, how could you do that to that poor robot? Don't have it slip on banana peels." Which, of course, was Boston Dynamics' way of showing how agile their robot was to get back up on its feet. But people were offended. So who knows? Maybe you see a spot blow up and, suddenly PETA's after you for robot abuse. Who knows? Okay, I teased this way earlier in the show, but again, lost track of time. Best Buy, in their new beta program, promises concierge tech support for $200 a year, piloting in Iowa, Pennsylvania, and Oklahoma. Mike, what do you think about potentially tech support as a service? And I don't know about you, but I guess I'm an advanced user, so I can't say that I have tech issues on the regular. Although my internet, maybe if it counts that. I don't know. Do you think this is ever a good deal? I mean, especially I think they're providing this for like individuals and like not businesses, but like individual households. Do you ever see this as potentially a good deal?
Yeah, potentially, but stuff like this has been around for quite a while. I know a lot of ISPs and other providers and phone providers and so on offer this sort of a deal as well. It's just the quality of the support you're getting is often not very great. You're calling into a call center and getting someone who may or may not know that much about the particular issue you're calling about. But at least it's something for people who don't have that grandson to call, who is the IT person of the family. It can be an option. I don't know. Best Buy has had some sketchy business practices in the past. Yeah. I don't know if they would be the first one I would go to for tech support subscriptions, especially when there are other ones out there. So I don't know enough about what they're offering. So tell me about it here. What's the
Geek Squad was pretty infamous for pushing malware and other anti-malware and other services that people did not need for kickback. So yeah, that was the thing. Best Buy beta program, as I mentioned, dedicated concierge support. So I mean, that's essentially what it is. Unlimited Geek Squad technical support on all technology in your home. What that constitutes, I'm assuming phones, TVs, appliances, things like that. 2-year warranty protection on Best Buy, including Apple Care and Apple products. So anything you buy at Best Buy, covered for 2 years. That's most the insurance.
Purchases.
Yes, and most purchases indeed. I mean,
it's always the fine print that gets me.
But
So it's unlimited support. I assume that's unlimited support by phone or remote.
They have
that's
a gentleman there on a
person.
phone. So
yeah, I saw the phrase "in your home" and I thought, "Oh wow, this is a deal." But then the phrase is technology in your home. I don't think it means they're coming to you.
So because they kind of specified here on the bottom right where it says free in-home standard delivery and installation on your Best Buy purchases, not on any technology, I'm guessing you're right that you can call into Geek Squad call center and get talk to as many people as you'd like, but to get technicians actually out to your home, I'm sure that they still have to charge you, and it's probably what this is, exclusive member sale pricing. So yeah, they'll give you a deal, quote unquote, right. But you're still paying for Geek Squad. But it's something, I don't know, personally, I feel like a lot of what Geek Squad does and a lot of what, what you might be kind of paying for here, forums such as obviously, tech.org and obviously just a simple Google search can solve a lot of people's problems if you know what you're looking for.
And your audience here are probably more likely to be those do-it-yourselfers who are willing to go out and do a Google search first before they do anything else. But the average person, maybe isn't. Maybe there's people who just don't want to deal with it, are scared of technology, don't want to try and figure it out themselves, and they want to be able to call and talk to a person. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. That may be they may be very happy to pay $20 a month to have someone on the other hand that they can on the other side of the phone that they can count on.
Yeah, I completely understand.
I don't think it's for your audience, but I think that there's certainly a market out there for that.
Yeah, for sure. So now that exists. Last thing, and we have about a minute or two left. I wanted to get these two stories. You sent over one of these. I pulled up another. Facebook attributes 533 million users' data leaks to a scraping, not a hack. And by the way, this data scrape was actually from 2019. So, it just, the reason that it got brought up again was because someone better refined it, put it in a more searchable format, and reposted it online. So it's the data, but cleaned up. And then on top of that, I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention as well. This one just yesterday, data scraped from 500 million LinkedIn users found for sale online. Real quick, and then I want, kind of what caught your eye about this, but to everyone out there, when they say scraped, that just means information that was facing the public, anyone could have read it. It's just now all in one place and categorized. So like, this is not, this is not your login. This is not your login details. Right. It's your name and your
passwords.
Phone number. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And which is also why you need to be a little careful about what you're sharing on, Facebook and LinkedIn and so on, because it can be scraped like this.
It can be. They say that they fixed these bugs, so things definitely did change, Mike. It's just, I mean, honestly, this is information that Facebook and LinkedIn would have sold anyways to people who pay the right price. If anything, this is kind of like pirating the software because hey, someone stole their marketable product. So that's really what happened here for Facebook and LinkedIn.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yep. So everyone out there, thank you for tuning into the show. Mike, man, that one went by quick. Thank you so much for being here. TechGuy.org.
Anytime.
Once again, Compute America. We'll catch Mike next month, first Wednesday of every month. Mark your calendar. Set your clock to it. Everyone, we'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.